Okay, hello, everybody out there. David Baer here with another Power of Reach training for coaches and trainers who are looking to utilize the power of the internet to connect, reach more prospective clients out there, and help and serve more people. In today's training, I'm going to be talking about copywriting. Now, I am not a copywriter. In fact, I probably don't write great copy, but that's not the point. The idea here is that we all can become a little bit better at utilizing our skills to communicate what we do, who we help, what problems we solve in our businesses. And copywriting is ultimately a very important part of communicating those messages. So I had the privilege of getting access to a new book that's actually officially launched today, I think, from a master copywriter named Ray Edwards. I've been following his stuff, watching his videos, learning from him for years now, and really pleased to have the chance to see what it is that that he is sharing with the world. As he puts it in the opening of his book, he's spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and years learning the stuff that he has learned in his own business, and he's giving this information away for less than $20 in his book. And so I read the book and sort of made a whole bunch of notes about things that I thought were really important to share with my students and my community when it comes to positioning copy in anything you're doing. So when I say, selling through copywriting, I'm not talking about big, giant sales pages, those long, classic sales pages or sales letters. Remember those letters you used to get in the mail, those big, thick envelopes that just went on for pages and pages, that direct response marketing? Well, that's the premise, the beginning point of all of this stuff. But that's not necessarily what any of us need to do or ought to be doing in our business these days. First of all, direct mail, incredibly expensive. And you can communicate using a lot of these same principles in many different ways, whether it's a blog post, an email or an email series, perhaps it's a sales letter on a website, or it's a video sales letter. These principles really apply to all of those areas, even infographics and other ways of communicating visually. So there's lots and lots of applications for good copywriting. And so I think I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this introduction, except to say that over the past couple of weeks, we've been talking about content creation, which really is a direct dovetail into copywriting. Creating the content that you are putting out onto the internet, again, whether it's written or visual or video or just audio, it's important to have a structure, and it's important to have a certain set of things in place. We've talked about that in the last few trainings, and I want to remind you of how important good copy is as part of that process as well. That not only do you position the concepts in your content, but also you want to make sure that you have words working to your advantage. And that's what copywriting is all about. So I made some notes on Ray's book, and I'm going to share with you some takeaways that I got from his book. Let me see if I can pull those slides up. So yeah, here we are. Okay, so let me just jump on over there. Just a moment. I want to make sure that everything is coming through loud and clear. So I'm just reloading the audio on this before we jump into the slides. Make sure that we are in good shape, and then we will go ahead with the discussion of copywriting. So thanks for just holding on there for a moment, folks. All right, yeah, looks like we are good to go. So let me jump over to the slides here, and let's actually blow that up so you get a full presentation. All right, so this is Ray Edwards, his new book, who Michael Hyatt calls the best copywriting teacher I know. So I really like what he does and how he makes copywriting interesting and accessible, and that's certainly important, especially if you are, a professional coach. What do you care about copywriting? Well, unless you're interested in NLP, you probably don't really spend a lot of time thinking about language. But ultimately, it can be very important to how you present yourself and your business. And so, don't think about this as marketing or sales, although it is. It's really about effective, persuasive communication to help people help themselves. And so here are my top 10 lessons that I took from reading through Ray's book. And if you stay through to the end, I'm going to show you how you can actually get a copy of Ray's book for free. So let me jump on into my very first lesson. And this is a story that he tells at the beginning of his book about really where the origins of copywriting came from. And there's a great story about this guy who back in the early part of the 20th century reached out to a major advertising executive and sent him a note via messenger. So that really got the guy's attention, saying something like, I know what copywriting is, or I know, something about the definition of copywriting that you don't. So piqued the guy's interest, got him really interested in well, who sent this? What is this about? And so the advertising executive accepted a request to meet with him. So the guy went upstairs, and ultimately they forged a great partnership. And this guy Kennedy is his last name, and for the life of me, it was John something Kennedy, and not Fitzgerald. And he had ultimately taken on a major role in what we see as great copywriting today. Well, part of his answer to the riddle that he sent in that memo was that copywriting is what he calls salesmanship in print. And if you think about salesmanship, great salesmen are not really selling anything. They are developing a relationship and working through a potential problem to see if their solution is a good fit for that prospect. And that's really what great copywriting does too. It's a process. It's a process of introducing an idea and connecting it to a potential problem, and then sort of exploring whether, based on the problem and the person who has that problem, whether this solution is going to fulfill that individual's needs. That is salesmanship in print. So that was a great way of sort of framing the entire subject matter of copywriting. So takeaway number 2 is something that I absolutely believe is true. Most copywriting training teaches how to manipulate and mislead. And I have picked up so much copywriting training that basically does exactly that. This is where you bring people down the path to believe this thing, which probably isn't true, but you need to instill urgency and create false scarcity. So if you don't buy now, the world is going to come to an end, or have a countdown timer on your website right next to the buy button to force people into thinking that they need to buy, but every time they reload that page, that countdown timer is counting down the same 20 minutes over and over again. So there actually is false scarcity there, because you can actually buy it today, you can buy it tomorrow, you can buy it next week or next month, and that countdown timer is always going to start at 20. That is so misleading. It's effective, but effective for a pretty short-term relationship because it's manipulative. That's not what Ray teaches. And so when I read through his book, I thought, well, this is a breath of fresh air, because I have been learning and I have been exposed to all of these things that are really trying to take advantage of people. And that's not who I am, and that's not who any of my clients are. So it's important to understand there's manipulative copywriting and there is persuasive, effective salesmanship copywriting. Right? Point number 3, you absolutely must position the problem in your copywriting so that you can actually offer a solution. So here's what I see quite often, and I have been guilty of this in my attempts to write good copy, is that it's not clear to people what exactly is being addressed, what is trying to be solved, what someone is trying to solve when it comes to the copy that they're creating. And so when you read through a sales letter, it doesn't state clearly at the beginning, do you have this problem? If so, read on. You know, it sounds sort of, I don't know, formulaic, but you need that formula in order for a sales letter or a piece of content, an email even, to make sense. It needs to have the context. And I often find that much of the copy that I'm seeing from people does not provide the context. We have low degrees of attention, short attention spans these days, and it's important to get right out there and say, all right, here's the problem, and talk about it, as opposed to sort of meander around and be vague about it, or, as I often like to complain about, use jargon and talk about big, touchy-feely things without really getting to the point. It's important to get to the point by talking about this is the problem at the very front end of your copy. All right, let me jump back over here again. Sorry, my computer is doing some funny things that you can't see right now. Number 4. Now, this is a trademarked formula that Ray has put together called his pastor formula. And he talks about what a pastor is, in clergy, right? It's really someone who leads, or someone who shepherds, right? Helps foster and care for a community. Well, his pastor definition is actually not very far from that when it comes to copywriting. But there's a process, a shepherding, a caring for the audience, the client out there, the person who is following along and listening to the presentation, or reading through a sales letter or an email, right? And so this is his formula, and this is just sort of a big framework for it. There's a lot more details. I think there's like, I don't know, 15 or 20 steps that he sort of outlines that are part of an effective piece of content, sales content. But first you want to start with the person and the problem and the pain that they're having. So that's the P. Then amplify, or I often see other people use the word agitate. So amplify the situation, talk about how this can be a problem, how if this problem goes on, what the consequences could be. Then after the amplification or the agitation, get into a story. We really relate very well to stories in general, and storytelling is one of the most effective ways to communicate a point. And so, I often find that I sort of look at a situation and go, well, gee, I don't know. I don't have a personal story that I can tell, that I've not been through this myself. But there's always a story out there, and if you go looking for it, if you it's sort of just sit back, separate yourself from the situation, and think about what potential story will make a point that you're trying to make. Even go online and start, reading news stories about something. Type some phrases into Google that might bring back some stories that you can share. But stories, and then talking about how the story leads to a potential solution, the solution that you're trying to offer, of course, is really effective at this point. So then you talk about the transformation that somebody goes from having that pain to discovering the solution, to experiencing the solution. And if you can get some sort of testimony or testimonial in there At this point, this is sort of the place where you want to do that in your overall sales copy structure. And really, testimonies is really important because we're all really skeptical these days. We see so much stuff that we just don't believe. And you need to have some sort of proof in there. So whether you actually get somebody who has bought something from you or been a client of yours and worked through a problem themselves, who is willing to offer a true testimonial, the most effective way of doing this is having them shoot a video. There's a discussion in Ray's book about getting somebody who provides a testimonial to actually put their phone number next to their picture, next to their testimonial, and how sales pages with that formula, that combination of a picture with a phone number and somebody's full name, right? Not just their first and last initial, is the most effective thing in the world. And that people who have done that, copywriting friends of Ray, talk about the fact that nobody ever actually gets a phone call from these things, right? If you put your phone number out there, nobody's calling. If anybody ever got called, they'd probably get a phone call to say, oh, yeah, I just wanted to make sure you were real. But that a sales page where somebody goes out there to actually put their phone number and picture and say, sort of suggesting, yeah, I'm a real person. I really believe in this and endorse this. Those sales letters have had some of the highest conversions that Ray's copywriting friends have ever experienced. So after the P and the A and the S and the T, right, passed, you get to the O, the offer. It is now time to put your solution and the specific offer that you have into place. Tell people what you have. Here's what I have as the solution, and here is where you basically proceed next. And that's the R, the response. Now that you tell them what you have, you ask for a response, and you do it in a very clear and straightforward way. It's the most uncomfortable part of selling anything. You can tell them, yeah, I do one-on-one coaching, and I meet with the clients over Skype, or but we never actually get around to telling people how they make the appointment and, most importantly, how they pay. That's a really uncomfortable part for many coaches out there. Well, this is where that needs to happen. You tell them what you have, and then you ask for the response. So, I have this program that is going to solve the problem that we discussed at the very beginning. And the next thing you need to do is click the button where it says buy. It's going to bring you over to PayPal, and you go into PayPal, you click yes, I'm going to pay the $150 that this program costs, and then after you complete your purchase, you'll be brought over to the page where you fill out your account and log in. Right? So if you are explicit about what you have, you then ask for the response by telling them the process, the next step at least, that they need to take to proceed. All right, I spent a lot of time on this, and this is really important, and it's part of a variation of a formula that I talk about a lot. So if you want in the Facebook group to discuss this particular area, this is an area that I think is really important for all of us to look at a little bit deeper in our businesses. All right, next is number 5, how to break up a sales letter. And Ray breaks this down really nicely in his book, and it's one of the areas of the book that I think I struggle with the most. Is first, there's a way that we as consumers of information tend to consume it. We typically don't read first. We typically sort of glance through it. We might skim something. And so there's that first pass of the eyes where certain things in a sales letter, and I keep saying sales letter, but it could be an ad, it could be an email, right? Certain things stand out, and if those pass our test, right, they say, yeah, this is worth actually looking at deeper, then we're going to take a second pass at it. And that's usually where there's like headlines and sub-headlines that's breaking up all of the text. Maybe there's some pictures and other things throughout the copy of a sales letter or an email, sales email. And when you then pass that second test, you're then going to say, okay, now I'm actually ready to dive in and consume this and read this. And this is a brilliant analysis that he makes of how to effectively break down the sales letter, your copy. And it's also really helpful. It's almost like a template. All right, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here. And so do yourself a favor. Next time you're looking at a sales letter, notice this. Notice how it's broken down, because they can be incredibly effective. Notice what you're doing, that you're vetting it first before you actually read it. All right, let's jump to number 6, the postscript. And this is the emails. He actually has a whole chapter on emails, which is really fascinating stuff. The postscript is the place to sum up the top benefit that you've already discussed in your email, and then repeat that request for a response. So if you're telling somebody in an email up above, all right, here's what I got, and here's what you should do, where you should click, you want to make sure that the last thing that you do, whether this is an email, he actually talks about sales letters having these as well. You may notice that if you've ever been to a sales page and it starts with, like, dear reader or something like that, and they still do, that there's often a postscript at the end of the page. And part of that is that we're trained, as he was talking about skimming through stuff before, we're trained to just jump to the end and see, all right, what's the bottom line? How much is it going to cost? And very often the bottom line is going to be below a buy button. The buy button is going to tell you how much it's going to cost. But the bottom of the sales page, the very last line that somebody might scroll all the way down to see what it costs, is going to re-emphasize the top benefit and then tell people, so buy it now, okay? And that is a far more effective conversion mechanism than somebody scrolling all the way down and seeing a buy button, buy this, it costs $150. All right, number 7, ask for a quote-unquote sale in every email that you send out. And this is I've never phrased it this way. I like the way that he phrases this, because quote-unquote sale is really not always a sale. You're not always selling things in email. But if you're developing a relationship with your email subscriber, if they are going to be expected to follow you and be interested in opening your emails, you want to make sure that you're providing them with an opportunity to take an additional action beyond just reading that email. And so you want to make sure that you're training people to click. That's what the sale is. It might be to click on over to download something that you're offering them. Maybe it's an opt-in. Maybe it's clicking on over to read a news article that you didn't even post, but you read something on some website and you thought, well, this is going to bring value, add value to the lives of the people in my audience, in my community. I'm going to share it with them. So you send out an email where you get the sale. You get them to click and consume that information. And it's a habit that when your subscribers, your audience, gets in the habit of clicking, they know that you're giving them good stuff. Sometimes it's just interesting information that's going to help add value to their lives or their business. And sometimes it's actually something you have to sell them, whether it's your thing or an affiliate promotion. And so getting people to click is basically what we're talking about here, asking for that sale every single time you send out an email. All right, number 8, put your link to that thing in your email at least 3 times in 3 different spots. I never do this, and I have just started since reading this. I sent a few emails out this week, and I have this is a new habit that I have to create, putting that link in about 3 different times, and you could do more. I probably wouldn't get too many more, 5 or 6, if it's a really long email, but so that it's always in view, that when somebody's scrolling through, there's always that link in view. But if somebody gets down to the end and you had that link all the way at the top, or they get all the way to the end, or the link isn't all until they get all the way to the end, and they stop reading at the beginning of the email, you've missed an opportunity. So make sure that you can position that offer to that sale, quote unquote sale, a few times throughout your email in logical locations, but a minimum of 3 is what Ray suggests. And then he gives some really good examples of how to do it. Great copywriters have swipe files. This was another great takeaway. I downloaded a Google Chrome extension probably, I don't know, 6-7 months ago, where I can just highlight copy that I see online, and when I highlight it and type some keystroke combination, it will automatically copy and save those phrases in a little swipe file. A swipe file is basically a collection of stuff that I encounter that I want to remember. A swipe file could be, you're driving down the road and you see a billboard, and that billboard communicates something that you wished you were communicating to people. And so what do? You take out your notepad or you take out your phone and you take a picture of it. A swipe file could be anything. It's just a way to collect things that you see other people doing or other businesses doing or other coaches doing that you want to emulate, that you want to utilize or repurpose, reposition, rephrase perhaps for your own purposes. So great copywriters have swipe files, and it's a habit that I have gotten into just a little bit since downloading that Chrome extension. Anytime I see something, I will copy it, and even the habit of copying it will help me remember those things better than if I hadn't. So that's another amazingly good piece of advice from Ray. Number 10, and this is really interesting. I was on a 24-hour blab. I wasn't on for 24 hours, but I was part of a 24-hour blab that took place this week, Tuesday and Wednesday, all around the world. And I was on 2 sessions of it. And during the wrap-up session, where the organizers were sort of reviewing what had happened over the previous 23 hours, they said that the through line among every single topic, and it was all about business. It was every angle that you could possibly think of related to business, from marketing or social media to product creation to client engagement to funding sources, anything you could think of related to business. There was something that sort of touched it, but the through line throughout the entire 23 hours was that you need to have goals. You need to start with goals. And that is absolutely no different in copywriting. If you don't know where you want to end up, there's no way that you're going to be able to reasonably structure your copy to get there effectively. And I'm not just talking about sales copy. I'm talking about anything that is going to be worthwhile putting out there for an audience to consume. Because if you don't know what you want them to do once they've consumed it, what's the point in putting it out there in the first place? And so starting with goals, I'm hearing this almost every single day. So it must be good advice. So that is my list of the 10 takeaways from Ray's book. And I want to now tell you how you can get a copy of this book for free. It has just been released. I just got this email this morning, which shared with me this link that you can grab Ray's book for free. It's a bit.ly link, so it's bit.ly, if you're not familiar with bit.ly, bit.ly/free copybook. And that's going to bring you over to, actually, I think I put a screenshot. Yep, this page where you'll get to meet Ray if you've never met him before. Really, really nice guy. Won't meet him in person, but via video, you get it. And there'll be a form for you to fill out where you will be asked to cover the shipping cost. And I can't remember, it's like $5 or $7 or something like that, which is still cheaper than getting the book from Amazon, which is like $15 or $17 or something. So is it free? Yeah, it's a free book plus shipping. This is so is it misleading? Or now I wonder if I was misleading in that respect. Anyway, that's beside the point. head on over to bit.ly.com or bit.ly. Gosh, it's just out of habit. I'm saying .com. bit.ly/free copybook and grab Ray's book. This is going to really be a help to you, I think, far beyond copywriting for sales pages or sales letters. It's really going to help you understand how to position your copy, your content, written content and otherwise, much more effectively in your business. And so with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to come back over to say hello to everybody. I see there is one more. There's one comment down here from Kim. Says yes, a subject line. I had to decide to come out. I'm not reading this properly, but I sent an email out, basically. I sent an email. So let me give you some context, because this has been a crazy day for me. My website host company took all of my websites offline because of something I did. I don't know. I exceeded some processor limit or something. And I've been struggling with this for most of the day today, trying to restore that. Well, what happened was I realized I'm not going to be able to put this this training on because everything is linked through my websites, right? If you go to thepowerofreach.com, I think that one will actually load. But if you go to my main website, baeronmarketing.com, and any of my other websites, it won't load. And I'm now in the process of switching to another service provider to host my websites because, frankly, I'm a little irritated with the one I've been with. But you know, that's another story for another time. I used that story in my email, and I can't remember the exact email subject line, but it was something like, all my websites went down. Copy that? Some goofy thing like that. And then I you know, got someone to open up the email because they're commenting about it. So thank you, Kim. But I basically used that story to relate how important good copywriting is and why you should come over and listen to this training today. Is it great? It's probably not the greatest copy, but it did what it was supposed to do, which was get somebody to take an action. And that's really that's the biggest takeaway. I hope that that you got something out of the takeaways that I shared with you, and really do encourage you to go grab a copy of Ray's book. He is one of the best copywriting guys out there, and his training is really accessible. And I think if you just see his examples, you're gonna get some real benefit in your own business as well. So, hey, thank you so much for joining me, whether you're here live or whether you are catching the replay. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. And I hope that you'll give me some feedback and let me know how this training is working for you. If we're addressing the types of things that are important to you in your coaching business, in your professional training business, I want to know. I'd love to hear back from you. And what other subjects you'd like to be covered is really important for me to know as well, because you're driving this. You're driving this process as much as I am, and the more feedback I can get, the more I can give and share my knowledge with you. So, hey, this is David Baer with another Power of Reach training, and I appreciate having the opportunity to spend a little bit of time with you once again today. Take care.